Hey everybody, how's it going? Welcome to the No DQ live recap of Monday Night Raw for August the 3rd, 2020 as we continue on the road to SummerSlam. Very bizarre show tonight. One of the weirdest episodes of Raw in a long time. Looks like there's a bigger live turnout than usual, maybe because so many people were curious about this show. It was something else. Let's go ahead and break it down. Now, for anybody that plans to send a super chat, I very much appreciate it, but please try to stick to the topic as I go through this show segment by segment. Let's start at the beginning with the announcers opening the show, and there were some technical issues. The lights were flickering, the microphones were having problems. The announcers talked about how maybe it was weather related. We had MVP come out for a United States Championship match against the returning Apollo Crews. Psycho Jet Black with a $2 super chat says, I have to ask, is the Attitude Era back? I'm not even sure if I would want the Attitude Era back, but no, it is not back. MVP cut a promo, and no, the Ruthless Aggression Era is not back, even though MVP is back cutting promos on Monday nights. TGS with a $1 super chat left a mustache emoji. Thank you for that. MVP cut a promo saying he's going to lay some truth jams on people, talking about how he's the real United States champion. He reps the Hurt Business, and Apollo, after he gets through with him, is going to be going back to catering with Ricochet and Cedric Alexander. Ouch. That was pretty savage. I mean, that was a shoot if I've ever heard one. Ricochet and Cedric were not on this show, by the way. Kayfabe Candy Ass says, this might be my last stream chat for a bit. Sorry to hear that, Kayfabe. I've actually heard that from a few people, which depresses me because I hope people will continue to tune in and watch my stuff. But it seems like with every passing week, I get more and more people telling me they just do not have any interest in wrestling anymore, and they tune out. Caleb Jacobs with a $2.20 super chat says, is this 2006 MVP when he was last credible? I think MVP is still credible. To me, he was one of the few good things about Raw this week and WWE in general. Hank Schrader on the shitter with a $2 super chat says, maybe I'll finally try watching a full Raw episode. This is not the one to watch, Hank, but I appreciate the super chat. And Mike B with a $2 super chat says, how much for you to do the Shane O'Mac dance? Not doing it tonight, so no amount of money. Anyways, let's get back to Raw. We had Apollo Crews come out with the old United States Championship, still recognized as the champion. We had Crews looking pretty hot here with his first match back in about a month or so. Of course, there's all the speculation as to why he was gone. Nothing ever confirmed, but a lot of people just put two and two together, him being gone and so forth. Christian with the $2 super chat, thank you for that, says, no cap, I miss the green SummerSlam logo. I like the current one they have, but I do remember the classic green logo. That one was pretty cool. Lashley got involved during this match, got on the apron when the referee wasn't looking, which helped MVP gain an advantage. And then the lights started flickering again. MVP hit a release German suplex, which Crews basically no-sold. He popped back up, hit his sit-down powerbomb finisher to retain, because he's been champion the entire time, retain the United States Championship. Lashley attempted to attack Crews after the match, but Crews was able to escape with both championships. After the match, Cruz cut a promo. He praised the strength of Bobby Lashley for putting him on the shelf for the past month. And he thanked MVP for the brand new championship. Now he could take it home, hang it up. His kids will no longer be confused about who the champion is. This was actually a nice promo by Apollo. Match was fine. Solid opening to Raw. I thought it was good. Psycho Jet Black with a $2 super chat says, Apollo has more credibility than Ricochet. Well, clearly MVP mentioned that, basically burying poor Ricochet and Cedric, that they're in catering. And by the way, MVP, after this was all done, he was still at ringside and he was very upset. He blamed his loss on the glitches, the flickering of the lights and all that stuff. And he basically challenged Apollo to a rematch at SummerSlam. And then we cut to a shot of this closed door and the big ninja from the Tozawa sequences, that guy that's like legitimately 7 foot tall, he was standing outside the office, I guess as a bodyguard for this big project that Shane McMahon has going on. So yes, Shane McMahon is back after his, 9-month hiatus from WWE after losing that match to Kevin Owens on the first Fox Friday Night Smackdown. Shane's back, and he's got something big for the WWE Universe, which we will get to here in a few moments. Caleb Jacobs with the $2 super chat says, is the Hurt Business just WWE's version? WWE's version of what? The Beatdown Clan? I mean, pretty much that's what it is. You just don't have Kenny King. We had Sasha Banks and Bayley backstage, and Bayley showed this video package of their accomplishments, and then Asuka interrupted the video package, saying that revenge will be very sweet. Going back to Bayley and Sasha, who were being interviewed, we had Shayna Baszler show up, and she said she has waited in line long enough. She slapped Sasha Banks, and that set up a match for later. We had Kevin Owens backstage running into the Iconics, and they wanted to be guests on the KO show, but he's like, he already has guests. We had the KO show, and Owens was having some microphone issues, more glitches, and he said that there's something else that he wants to talk about besides Shane McMahon. He really did not seem very upset about Shane, considering the fact that Shane made his life a living hell. He seemed like he was at peace with Shane being back, so good for KO, I suppose. He brought out his guest, who was Ruby Riott. Ruby talked about having a tough time, her losing streak, and the Iconics were grinding that salt into the wound. But she finally got to shut up Peyton Royce and put an end to the Iconic bullshit, which was censored, but she did drop the BS phrase. She said the only thing that would have made it better was if Liv Morgan was there. Owens had a surprise. He brought out Liv Morgan, making her first appearance in several weeks on Raw. And some guy in the audience yelled out, "Don't trust her." Owens said that he feels the two of them bring out the best in each other, and he admits he's done some crappy things, but he feels that it's worth Ruby Riott and Liv Morgan talking things out. And he even gave a shout out to Sarah Logan during this segment. Ruby got very emotional talking to Liv, talked about taking out her frustrations on Liv when she returned from injury, breaking up the Riott Squad. And she mentioned the Riott Squad tattoos that all the members have of the date that they debuted as a group in WWE. And all of a sudden, the Iconics came out. They started making fun of Ruby Riott and Liv Morgan, saying nobody cares about them. Liv backed up her friend and said that nobody starts a riot better than them. Peyton said, let's do a match. A challenge was issued. And as the Iconics were talking, Kevin Owens was like, can we get some more technical difficulties here when the Iconics are talking? Both Peyton and Billy were not happy with this insult. They slapped Owens. Owens asked for some help. Fight broke out. This segment went on really long, and then we finally had a match. KO was on commentary, and the match was way quicker than the interview segment. Morgan rolled up Billy Kay to win, and after the match, the Riot Squad members cleared house, hit a double team to Billy Kay, and Liv even held the ropes open for Ruby Riott as they took their leave. All this was fine. I just felt like that promo segment probably went on a bit longer than it needed to. We had Charlie Caruso backstage, and she revealed that a box had fallen over earlier in the day. Nobody was hurt, fortunately, but there was speculation amongst the WWE talent that it was not an accident. MVP showed up, pissed off, piss and vinegar, and it was noted by Charlie that Apollo has accepted the rematch for SummerSlam. It is official. Apollo Crews versus MVP once again at SummerSlam for the United States Championship. But there were other issues here. Shelton Benjamin's 24/7 I-95 Hardcore European Championship was stolen. Who did it? But before we could find out, we had Drew McIntyre come out for a promo. He talked about Randy Orton not being like Steve Austin or The Rock. He's different. Randy Orton had things handed to him on a silver platter, and Orton got his spot because of his dad, Cowboy Bob Orton. He never rode in a limousine, Drew McIntyre that is, like Evolution, and said that he did deserve to be fired. However, Randy Orton should have been fired more times than Drew McIntyre could have been fired for literally people having to clean up Orton's crap. So yes, a reference to Randy Orton pooping in people's bags, which has been a long standing story about Randy Orton being a jerk back in the day. Drew McIntyre did in fact make a reference to this. Randy Orton came out along with Ric Flair, who was back. Why, I don't know, but he is back. Randy Orton said if it was all about money, he would not be there. He's there because he's passionate about hurting people. RKOs, punts. And he said he's going to enjoy beating up Drew McIntyre at SummerSlam, punting him, winning the WWE title, and says, yeah, he should have been fired. But he's more valuable to the company than Drew McIntyre ever was. And he says that he's been given many chances because he, unlike Drew, is the real chosen one. And then Randy Orton challenged Drew McIntyre to say an original insult about him. I guess maybe because Edge a couple weeks ago talked about how Randy Orton just has things handed to him. And Drew responded by saying that Orton represents everything that is wrong with WWE. McIntyre brought up the documentary and said that Orton has never done what Undertaker did for all those years. Undertaker would take people that were down and bring them up. Orton never did that to anybody. And when McIntyre got fired, Orton did not do a damn thing. McIntyre called Orton a selfish prick who is not a leader. And at SummerSlam, McIntyre is going to cash in all those receipts for every legend that Orton kicked in the head. And Orton is never going to see it coming. TJS with a $2 super chat says, Drew McIntyre is the best thing going in WWE. Changed my mind. Well, there you have it, folks. In the chat room, or if you leave a comment, Let TJS know if Drew is not the best thing going in WWE and why. Change his mind. Tony H with the $2 super chat. Thank you for that, Tony. He says, I feel Orton and Drew McIntyre are in for a series of matches. Probably would not shock me if it's rematch central with those guys and they do a Hell in a Cell match, most likely. Yeah, I think it's quite possible we'll get 2 or 3 matches out of those guys for the remainder of the year. Definitely don't see it being a one-off. The Game is on 100 with a $2 super chat. Says, Drew McIntyre saying like Cena said to Orton 7 years ago. Yeah, I mean, the problem with that promo, I thought Drew did a great job, and I think Randy did a great job, but we've heard the same thing so many times that Randy Orton said everything handed to him. His father is the reason he got big, and WWE was doing the same thing with Charlotte, too. Charlotte's only a big star because of her dad, and it's just done so many times, it gets really tedious. But overall, I thought the delivery was really good with these guys. And shout out to Robbie Vice, No DQ Review panelist, who's in the house tonight. I appreciate you tuning in. We had Ric Flair backstage with Kevin Owens. So Flair actually did do something on this show besides standing there next to Randy Orton. He talked to Kevin Owens about how Owens has been too worried about helping others instead of helping himself. Owens said that he's trying to be what Randy Orton has never been as far as helping people who are down on their luck and need to be brought up. Basically, a challenge was issued, Randy Orton versus Kevin Owens for next week's edition of Monday Night Raw. So there you go. We had Nia Jax in the ring with Pat Buck, who is working behind the scenes in WWE. Pat Buck was beat up last week by Nia Jax, and the footage was shown. However, instead of issuing an apology, Nia challenged Buck to a match. Buck was under the impression he was getting an apology. But then Nia started taunting him, saying that he was scared, and she thought that a little guy would have more fire, especially the fact that he's a ginger. Yes, she did use the term ginger on this show. Buck was fed up with this. The Buck stopped there. He indefinitely suspended Nia Jax without pay, and she responded by giving him a headbutt. Not really sure where this is going. I guess this is just a way to try and keep Nia Jax busy without putting her in the championship feud for the women's title. It was all right. I mean, hey, good for Pat Buck. He's getting some TV time, and at least there's some kind of authority figure, even though I'm not sure if we'll see him again or not. We had R-Truth run out with the 24/7 championship, which he stole from Shelton Benjamin. After the commercial break, we had a triple threat, R-Truth versus Shelton Benjamin, the champ, and Akira Tozawa, along with the Ninjas. Mike B with the $2 super chat says, Rocky and Bullwinkle are more over than Nia Jax. I would have to agree with you on that. I liked Rocky and Bullwinkle back in the day. So we had this triple threat 24/7 title match. Lashley and MVP were at ringside. Shelton hit the pay dirt to R-Truth, but then one of the Ninjas attempted to interfere, and he got his ass kicked. He got his wig split. MVP and Lashley beat up the other Ninjas, but as all this chaos was going down, we had Tozawa hit the senton off the top to R-Truth, pinned him, and reclaimed the 24/7 title. So I guess this way, you get the title off of Benjamin without him being pinned, and I guess Shelton can be a serious player now as part of the Hurt Business instead of this whole comedy routine with the 24/7 title. So in this sense, it was a positive. Get that damn title off of him. If people are ever going to take him serious again, I think you really need to do that. Now, Tren87 with a $2 super chat says, I'm sorry, but who the hell is Pat Buck? Pat Buck is a guy that has been on the indie scene before WWE. I don't know too much about him, but I know he recently got involved with WWE working behind the scenes. And Psycho Jet Black with the $2 super chat says, I'm okay with Pat Buck replacing Ricochet on TV. Man, what is up with the hate for Ricochet? I know you don't like him, but that's really brutal, Ken. Or not Ken, Psycho Jet Black. My apologies. Hamp Kano with a $20 super chat. Thank you very much for that, Hamp. I really do appreciate it. He says, my problem with it is the same problem I have with people saying HHH was handed his spot. Both guys have earned what they have. You can't really say it's because of his dad. Look at Cody, Ted DiBiase, and Tamina, and so forth. Well, the thing also to keep in mind, anytime somebody throws that dig about, oh, the second or third generation star only got a spot because of their parent, yeah, it's true. They get their foot in the door, but there's also those high expectations. When you're a second or third generation star, people automatically assume that you're great. They expect you to perform at a high level. So the pressure is even more on for those people. It's really a double-edged sword. There's that positive, yeah, you get your foot in the door, but then there's that negative that you have to deliver. Because if you don't, they're going to just label you as a failure that cannot live up to your folks. And a $10 super chat from Dylan's Wrestling Stuff. Thank you very much for that, Dylan. I really do appreciate it. He says, I got one thing to say. People need to stop defending this show. And he put that in all caps. I'm not going to scream it because it's 11:30 Eastern time and I don't want to wake up the neighborhood. But he does not like when people defend the show. So that is from Dylan, and I do appreciate it, Dylan. Thank you for that. Let's move on here to our next segment, which, here we go. Shane McMahon. And we had these guys in this warehouse somewhere at the Performance Center. They were fighting MMA style. No ropes surrounding the ring. You had the ring surrounded with PC trainees pounding the mat. You had these women dancing around. And Shane announced that at 10 Eastern, we would have Raw Underground. We'll get to that in a few minutes here. Dominic Mysterio was interviewed backstage, asked about why he keeps showing up to Raw. He said his mind has not been in the right place. However, the people that think he's crazy are really going to think he's crazy when he challenges Seth Rollins to a match at SummerSlam. And there's more of that. We'll get to that in a few minutes. We had Shayna Baszler versus Sasha Banks in a one-on-one match. And this one was a doozy. Oofman Entertainment with a $5 super chat says, typical WWE logic, ratings start to tank, drag out a McMahon. Yeah, kind of comes off as desperate, doesn't it? But I will talk more about that in a few minutes here. Thank you, Oofman. I appreciate it. TJS with a $5 super chat. Thank you for that. He says, Heisenberg slipped Ryson to the Street Profits. TJS jumping ahead here. He says, I think Dominic has it. Great promos, lots of intensity. Sold Brock, beat down great. Could he surpass Ray? That's a tall order to fill. I mean, Dominic's taller than his dad, but figuratively, they are some very big shoes to fill. So we'll see. Dominic is showing some potential, but as JR would say, you cannot make a living on potential. Turd Ferguson, the second one with a $5 super chat, I like the username, says, Raw Underground needs the old Union Underground theme from the early 2000s. Saying this, knowing nothing about Raw Underground. Funny thing is, that was the first thing I was thinking of when Shane made this announcement. I was like, cool. They're going to bring back that Union Underground song from 2002. Like, I might actually pop for that if they did that, but spoiler alert, they did not. So we had Shayna versus Sasha with Bayley interfering. Typical stuff here. Gets on the apron. Shayna gets distracted. Is Shayna a babyface now? I don't know. I don't know, as Lex Luger might say. Sasha threw Shayna into the post, put on the bank statement, but Shayna got out of it. And here's the real doozy of this match, and that is the finish. So we had Asuka run down, and she attacked Bayley. Referee called for the bell. Asuka, not part of the match, attacked Bayley, also not part of the match, and the match was called off. What? When has that ever happened? Seriously. This made no sense whatsoever. After the match, Asuka was interviewed. She said Kairi Sane will be okay, although if you went on WWE's website or social media, you knew she went back to Japan and she was leaving WWE. But anyways, Asuka challenged Sasha to a rematch at SummerSlam, and then Shayna approached Asuka and said if that match happens, she's rooting for Asuka to win so they can have a match, and then Shayna will dismember Asuka and win the Raw title from her. Sasha and Bayley came back out, and Sasha said she would fight Asuka on one condition: if Asuka could beat her best friend Bayley in a match on next week's show. And of course, Bayley was not too thrilled about this, but it was announced for next week's show. Asuka versus Bayley. If Asuka wins, she gets a title match at SummerSlam. Yay. Backstage, we had Angel Garza giving a rose to some woman from the TV show The Bachelor. Never heard of her. Zelina Vega was not amused by this. And then we had the beginning of the third hour. Well, technically it was 9:55, not 10 o'clock Eastern, as Shane McMahon hyped up. We had our first fight of the Raw Underground. And basically this was like Fight Club, the movie from over 20 years ago. I felt like maybe Vince McMahon or Bruce Pritchard, they were on a flight and maybe this movie was playing and they saw a clip of it and they're like, this is what we got to do to bring back those young viewers to Monday Night Raw. I mean, that's what it felt like. This just reeked of desperation. Yes, I applaud WWE when they try something different, but this just felt so pathetic. Like, you got these women dancing around, and it just felt like they have no idea what to do to get the young viewers back, so they just put this out there. These fights, these MMA-style fights were lasting like 1 minute each. There were 3 of them. This one guy, Daba Kato, won the first one, and then Shane said, we're lining up a different fighter. It wasn't really like the Brawl for All. I mean, kind of, but not really. It was like Fight Club mixed with Brawl for All, mixed with Bloodsport, a couple of different things thrown together. But yeah, it just felt so desperate. And that's really the best way I can describe it. ZOMG Ruler with the $2 super chat says, the only benefit I see with Raw Underground is a 24/7 title. I think they're going to drop this very quick. Like, I think this bombed hard, and I don't see them doing this beyond 2 weeks. You know, they might have taped something for next week because Raw was taped. They did 2 shows, one for tonight and one for next week. By the way, and that whole situation was said to be very chaotic and the usual throwing shows together at the last minute, very WCW-like. Tony H with the $2 super chat, thank you, Tony, says, such dumb shit. And Hamp Kana with a $5 super chat. Thank you, Hamp. He says, kind of seems to me like they're going to use it to promote a certain wrestler like Brawl for All and Shane McMahon be their mouthpiece. Who knows? Again, they may drop it in a week or two and then we'll never know anyways. Some people think it's going to last 3 weeks. Like, I'll be surprised if it's still around in 2 weeks. I really will. So we had the Street Profits come out. They cut a promo. Dawkins wanted to hook up with the Bachelor girl, but Montez Ford wanted things to be taken more seriously. Psycho Jet Black with the $2 super chat says, Raw Underground needs Bart Gunn. Yes. If Bart Gunn was on this show, I would have popped for it. We needed that Bart Gunn cameo. Like, wherever he is in the country, they should have flown him in and had him be part of this. So anyways, we had our first of 2 singles matches with the tag teams to hype up SummerSlam. We had Dawkins versus Garza. The Bachelor woman was watching backstage. Angel Garza picked up the victory with a drop kick to the side of the face. And Montez Ford was on the outside of the ring, and something did not seem right with him. After the commercial, though, he got in the ring and wrestled Andrade. He hit his big moves. He did a dive over the top, got in the ring, did the Ultimate Warrior shaking of the ropes, but then he pulled a Shawn Michaels circa 1995 and collapsed right in the middle of the match. This was a throwback to when Owen Hart gave the Enziguri to Shawn, and Shawn collapsed in the middle of the ring, and that big angle set up the Royal Rumble and Shawn making his big run towards WrestleMania. Basically the same thing here. Match was thrown out, and then they quickly cut away to Buddy, don't call him Eddie Murphy, backstage. He was watching the footage of what he did to Aleister Black's eye, feeling a bit upset, but Rollins tried to tell him that Murphy made the right decision and should be proud. Murphy wanted to know if Rollins was going to answer Dominic's challenge, and saying that the whole thing was dumb because, well, Dominic is not really a wrestler. He has no experience. Rollins just walked off and did not give an answer. Have a few super chats here. Brian Mills with a $5 super chat says, within the second or third hours, the disturbances stopped. Is that a case of them, quote, fixing the issue or just being lazy? I guess the production people finally got it together. You know, this is a $1 billion company. You would think that they would be able to fix the issue by the second hour. Ken terminated by DQ with a $5 super chat. Thank you, Ken. He says, I am probably the only MMA fan in the chat. The Raw Underground was as cringy as the karaoke segment from Smackdown. And I guess he was asking me as a question. He says, by the way, long time no see, Rift. I would say the Raw Underground stuff was more cringy. The karaoke thing was just dumb, but I don't think it felt as desperate as the Raw Underground segment. I would think there would be a few MMA fans in this chat room, though, but who knows. We had Shane McMahon introduce another fight. Speaking of the Raw Underground, it was Eric of the Viking Raiders. He beat up another guy in about 1 minute. Joe and the announcers were loving this. So there you go. And then we had Charlie Caruso in the trainer's room, or outside the trainer's room, I should say. Angel Garza gave her a rose. Dawkins came out of the room, not 100% sure what's going on, but the doctors think that Ford was given not a lethal dose, but a dose of poison. Bianca Belair came out of the room. She was pissed off. She was very sassy, and she gave Zelina Vega one chance to explain what happened to her husband being poisoned. Zelina basically denied it, and then we had a big fight break out, and as TJS said earlier, ricin. Not sure if it was Walter White with the ricin, but maybe it was. Maybe maybe they were having tea earlier in the day and Zelina slipped a little bit of ricin into Montez Ford's cup of coffee or tea. Brian Spencer with a $5 super chat says, I think someone has been watching UFC. A fighter fainted on Saturday and the fight was canceled. Also very MMA-like with the style of the fights. Well, thank you for that, Brian. And that's true. It might not have been a reference to Shawn Michaels in 95, but then again, maybe they saw that UFC clip and then they're like, well, wait a minute, we did something with Shawn back in the day. Let's revisit that now with Montez Ford. I mean, that very well could have been the case. We had a fight break out between Zelina and Bianca Belair. And then we had the announcers direct us to footage from security cameras outside the building earlier in the evening. We had these masked guys who were dressed in all black from head to toe, kind of like ninjas, but they were not ninjas. Apparently they were meant to be dressed like people that protest things and start destroying property, Antifa, whatever. But apparently this was not meant to be a political statement by WWE. But of course people are going to associate this with what's going on in real life. The guys basically set the power generators on fire by throwing Molotov cocktails at the generator, and they were all laughing and high-fiving. You would think with this much fire, like this would just completely ruin the show, but apparently WWE was able to salvage it within the second or third hour. This was really dumb. Like, if this was the beginning of a storyline, usually WWE's really good with starting storylines, and if this is supposed to be a major storyline, like, this was shit. Like, I don't even have any hopes for this. Like, if WWE cannot start the angle good, I have, like, no hope for it. And I think it's already ridiculous. This is WWE's version of the Dark Order. Like, this was so dumb. And, yeah, WWE doesn't want people to think of politics, but that's what people were thinking. So, yeah, not sure how I feel about this one. I think that this is a no for me. Psycho Jet Black with the $2 super chat, thank you for that, says the Performance Center needs better security. Yeah, I would say so. I would say that's very much the case. Yeah, Nexus debut, this was not. I think when news broke earlier today that, first of all, WWE announces before Raw there's going to be a new faction showing up. That was dumb. But, I mean, as it turns out, this was dumb. So, WWE, I guess, saved us even more disappointment because at least we could have anticipated that something dumb might happen. But, yeah, this just didn't work for me. And maybe it will be a reverse Nexus where it starts off bad and it becomes great. But don't have very much in the way of high hopes for this one. We had the Hurt Business interviewed backstage. They were dressed up, so I guess they were ready to go home. But then MVP had an idea and decided that they were going to pay a visit to the Raw Underground set. Brian Mills with a $5 super chat. Thank you very much, Brian. I appreciate it. He says, if this was a major storyline, why did it not end the show? Raw Underground closing out the show was the biggest disappointment tonight. Maybe WWE has no idea what they want to do with this. Like, apparently the idea is that it's disgruntled people in the company that want to destroy the company from within. I don't know where they're going with this, but yeah, I was not a fan of it. We had a recap of the Seth Rollins and Rey Mysterio storyline. Rollins came to the ring, said he had a bone to pick with Tom Phillips because Phillips was cheering what Dominic did to Rollins on last week's show. And Rollins said that because Tom is biased, Tom is now becoming a liability, and maybe it's time that there's a new voice of Raw. Rollins instructed Murphy to take out Phillips, but then Samoa Joe stood up for Tom Phillips, and Joe warned them to back off, and Joe even admitted that it was him that was laughing the hardest. I liked this segment, and I feel like it's a good setup for Joe to come back if Joe's actually coming back. I want to see Joe back in the ring. I don't know if this was setting up anything with him in the future, but just getting Joe confrontation with Rollins, I was enjoying it. And J-Los Overall 87 with a $2 super chat, thank you for that, says, you should switch to Cash App. YouTube takes 30%. Yeah, I know that sucks. I have only so much control over that. I suppose I could try a different way for people to send super chats, but for the time being, this is the way it's got to be. Yeah, YouTube takes about 30%. So when you guys send those super chats, you're actually giving YouTube about a third of whatever I'm getting. The best way you could support No DQ, by the way, buy a t-shirt. Go to nodq.com/shirts and pick up a t-shirt. But I do appreciate the super chats from you guys nonetheless. And Turd Ferguson, the second one with a $3.50 super chat, says, the Hurt Business is greater than the Beatdown Clan, name-wise. Well, thank you for that, Turd. I appreciate it. And I agree on the name. The Beatdown Clan name was dumb, in my opinion. Mike B with the $2 super chat says, is Joe still able to wrestle? It depends if he can get cleared, bottom line. And up until this point, he hasn't been cleared, but maybe this was the start of something. I guess we'll see. Anyways, before Joe could actually get in the ring to fight Seth Rollins, we had Dominic show up with the kendo stick. He beat up both Rollins and Murphy with the kendo stick, hit a 619 to Rollins, and then did a dive onto both of them. Rollins was pissed off and accepted the SummerSlam match. Psycho Jet Black with a $2 super chat says, you should open up an OnlyFans account. Yeah, don't know about that one. But hey, it works for some people. Ken terminated by DQ with a $5 super chat. Thank you, Ken. He says, Rift, I'd like to see Joe back as a competitor, but do you enjoy Joe as a color analysis? He's no Heenan or Ventura, but I like his work. Oh, yeah, I think Joe does a great job, and to me, he's the saving grace of the Raw commentary team, quite frankly. Like, without him, it would be very dreadful to listen to, but thankfully he's there, and I would prefer to see him wrestle, but hey, any Joe is good as far as I'm concerned. And then we had our final segment of the evening, which was the last Fight Club Raw Underground match or fight, whatever the hell you want to call it. Dolph Ziggler won by tap out in about a minute. Hurt Business showed up and said that the Raw Underground is now under new management. Lashley got into the ring, beat up some guy, destroyed him. MVP then took off his jacket and wanted some. We cut to some dancing women. By the way, one thing this segment needed, the Raw Underground, we needed more camera cuts. There were not enough cuts. Kevin Dunn, can you do more, please? We need more cuts. And man, what about this music? Like this beeping sound every 5 seconds. Like, I thought my smoke detector was going off. Like, maybe you should turn up that beeping sound. We had Shelton Benjamin pull in a guy, and then Shelton beat up Dio Madden. Why was Dio Madden a jabroni in this Fight Club sequence? Dio Madden should be on NXT and getting a push. Like, that guy has some real potential to be a star. Like, why is he just some scrub getting beat up in this segment? That upset me personally. And I agree, Brandon Mills, the Brawl for All music was a lot better than this. So Brawl for All automatically better because it had Bart Gunn and it had better music. And by the way, in case you guys did not know, I was being sarcastic about the camera cuts. Hopefully people realize that. I know not everybody. My humor can be very dry sometimes. Shane McMahon was very satisfied with the Beatdown Clan 2.0, the Hurt Business, beating up everybody, and said he's looking forward to seeing what happens next week. And MVP said that the Hurt Business is on top, and now business is booming. And that, my friends, was the end of Monday Night Raw. This show was a train wreck. Did it have some good moments? A couple. I liked the Rollins Dominic build-up. That was pretty good. And I liked Apollo Crews versus MVP. I enjoyed that. There were some intriguing things. I did like the Drew McIntyre and Randy Orton promo. But the Raw Underground stuff, dud. And the mystery disruptors, dud. And some forgettable stuff. Letter grade. I don't even know what to give this show. Like, it wasn't really boring, but there was a lot of bad stuff. I'm giving it a C-, and I think that's generous because I thought there were a few good things on the show. But yeah, C- is my letter grade for Raw. More faves with an F. Michael Gonzalez with a B-, Mr. Anderson with a D, J-Spin 401 with an F, Bruce Marvel with a D+, Jeremy Dorset with a C-, Oh My God Ruler with a C+, Matt Helms with a C, Michael Wayne with a C-, Hamp Connor with a D, and Brian Spencer with a B. Yeah, I feel like you guys might have disliked it more than me. Like, I didn't hate the show, but this was pretty cringy at times. TJS with a $2 super chat. Thank you for that, TJS. He says, best wrestling commentator, Punk, Joe, Y2J, or Taz? Probably Joe. I did like what CM Punk did, but it was very brief. I enjoyed Joe. Y2J is funny, but I don't think he should be doing it every week. Taz was definitely good back in the day with Michael Cole. But yeah, I think I like Joe out of the four, quite frankly. Psycho Jet Black with a $5 super chat says, seriously, where did the Rift Aronson character come from? Was he created for the Tough Enough back in 2011 or earlier than that? 2015, Rift Aronson tried out for Tough Enough. That's the first time I heard about him. He auditioned, and I made the mistake of publishing his video, and then he started tormenting me and stalking me ever since. But he's been gone ever since I left Portland. I kept him in Portland. He's there with all the craziness going on in Portland, and maybe somebody there took him out. I'm hoping so, because Rift Aronson was a total whack job. Ken Terminated by DQ with a $5 super chat. Thank you, Ken. He says, I got a better question, TJS. Who's an underrated color analysis? My answer is Mr. Perfect because of Kurt's voice being more enjoyable to listen to, and he had humor. Yeah, I did enjoy Kurt Hennig. I thought he was pretty good at commentary. All right, guys, on that note, I will go ahead and wrap this up. JLos Overall 87 with a $2 super chat says, WWF 1999 or WWE 2002, which year was better? 99. 2002 is when things were starting to decline. 99 was a great year, in my opinion. Yes, it was the peak of Vince Russo, but hey, I enjoyed a lot of Vince Russo stuff, and Raw was a fun show to watch. Were there some train wreck segments? Absolutely, but you had Stone Cold, you had The Rock, you had Mankind, Triple H, lots of cool stuff in 99. Psycho Jet Black with the $2 super chat says, was Sting overrated and DDP underrated? I thought Sting was a great character. I don't think he was overrated. I think he deserved his success. And DDP was great. He just got into the business too late. You know, he was already pushing. How old was he when he got big in WCW? Like, I think he was in his late 30s when he was on top in WCW. So he was already past his peak. So if DDP had gotten big like 10 years earlier, he would have had a really long, successful run, I think, in the wrestling business, and maybe had a longer run in WWE. Anyways, guys, I'll be back with the No DQ review. I'm sure we'll be talking about all this stuff from Raw and more, so tune in Tuesday night, 7 p.m. Eastern, 4 p.m. Pacific. Thank you guys again. Take care. Oofman Rules with a $2 super chat says, Rock buying XFL, your thoughts? We're going to talk about this, I'm sure, on the No DQ review. To me, I don't care because I'm not a football fan, but it's interesting. I was not expecting The Rock to buy the XFL, that's for sure. And XFL is like Impact, where you think it's dead and it keeps rising from the ashes. But again, we'll talk more about it on the No DQ review. Tune in for that, and I'll see you guys next time.